Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. Today we're heading to Modern to check out a super interesting mashup. I'm calling it Nahiri's End. This one is from Matakawa Satoshi, a Japanese player. So congrats to Satoshi for making a really sweet deck. Quick reminder before we break it down, if you enjoy this deck and would like to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into Much Brew About Nothing videos for next week. Anyway, let's break down Nahiri's End. So, Living End is a known quantity in Modern. People know what it does, it's been around for a long time, and this deck starts off looking pretty much like a typical Living End deck. So you got the 3 Living Ends, the Violent Outburst, the Demonic Dreads. Basically, Demonic Dread gets rid of all the creatures on the battlefield and reanimates all the creatures in the graveyard. So if you can fill your graveyard with creatures and then resolve a Living End, you get a huge advantage because most likely your opponent doesn't have as many creatures as you and you win the game. The problem with Living End is you gotta suspend it for 4 mana and then wait 3 turns. It takes a really long time to actually come to fruition. That's why you play Violent Outburst and Demonic Dread. It's a way to cheat on your Living Ends, get them into play sooner. Living End is the only spell you can cascade into. So when you cast a Violent Outburst or Demonic Dread, you know 100% that the card you're going to hit is Living End. So basically, you get a Living End for 3 mana without having to wait 3 turns with suspend and all that stuff. That's why you have the Cascade cards. So, Cascade into Living End, that's plan A. Just like every Living End deck, you have a ton of cards to fill your graveyard. The easiest way to do this is cycling. So, Street Wraith, Deadshot, Minotaur, and Monstrous Carabid, they all just cycle. Street Wraith for 2 life, the Minotaur and Carabid for 1 mana. So basically, these cycle through your deck, help you keep finding your Cascade spells to get your Living End, other action, and they go into the graveyard really easily. So then when on turn 3 or turn 4 you cast your Living End, you get back all these creatures, and hopefully that's enough to win the game. You also have a couple of land cyclers. These are just like the other ones, except when you cycle, instead of drawing a random card from the top of your deck, you get to pull a basic land, or a land of a specific type, out of your library. So Pale Recluse gets you a forest or a plains, Iguanus Pouncer gets you a swamp or a mountain. So just another way to get creatures in the graveyard, and the deck is pretty light on lands, so it's a way to make sure you have the mana you need to cast your Cascade spells and all that. Then you have some more typical Living End stuff. Fulminator Mage, you play it, sack it to destroy one of your opponent's lands, so it's in the graveyard. Then when you cast your Living End, you get it back, you can destroy another land. Shriekmaw, same deal, you can evoke it for only 2 mana, kill one of your opponent's creatures, and then get it back when you cast your Living End. And then a couple of just other Living End things. Simian Spirit Guide, the main purpose of it is just to speed up the process. If you want to, you can Living End as early as turn 2 by exiling the Spirit Guide for an additional mana. And Beast Within is basically Vindicate in this deck. It is a free roll, essentially, because even though you're giving your opponent the Beast, when you resolve your Living End, you're going to destroy the Beast. So a lot of times it targets an opponent's land, keep them light on resources so they don't have as much chance of recovering after the Living End. But you can hit anything with it, any permanent at all. But then, this is where the deck starts to go a little bit off the track. First off, 3 Siege Rhinos. Siege Rhino is not a card you typically see in Living End. I'm not exactly sure the purpose of it. I guess you can like play it and drain, and then Beast Within your own Siege Rhino to get it back with Living End. I guess it helps against aggro. It is a big, efficient threat, but kind of weird in Living End. But speaking of weird in Living End, Emrakul the Aeons Torn. So Emrakul seems like the last card you want in Living End, because if it ever goes in your graveyard, it shuffles everything back in and ruins all your hard work setting up for Living End. So why are you going to play an Emrakul? Plus, you're a, 18 land deck, I believe, so your odds of ever just casting an Emrakul are incredibly slim. It seems absurd that you'd want to play Emrakul in a Living End shell, but you got the Nahiri. So this is basically a mashup. You're playing a Living End deck, except you are smashing the Nahiri Emrakul the Aeons Torn combo into the deck. It's a way of winning if your graveyard gets locked out of the game somehow, helps you win through that. But that's where the deck gets crazy. So typical Living End, except you got some Siege Rhinos, and you can randomly just Emrakul your opponent with Nahiri if you're not doing your Living End plan. The mana base is all over the place, so you got a bunch of fetch lands, shock lands of many colors, some of the fast lands from Scars of Mirrodin, and a few basics. In the sideboard, we got some more creatures that go to the graveyard, then a Slaughter Games and a Ricochet Trap. Ricochet Trap helps you resolve your Living End through counters. Slaughter Game can get rid of a specific problem in your opponent's deck, and then Leyline of the Void is to make sure your opponent can't get good Living Ends. Some decks, Dredge for example, can fill their graveyard just as fast as you can, and if your opponent is filling their graveyard, your Living End isn't necessarily going to win you the game, so that's where Leyline comes in to make sure the Living End is always more in your favor than it is in your opponent's favor. That's been our Nahiri's End Instant Deck Tech. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you soon.